I deleted the whole world except for the Holy Roman Empire, and using the Colonize Pls mod, we are going to let the princes of the HRE repopulate the world. Some nations are in a better position than others, but everyone will have their chance for global domination. I do have a goal of hitting 20,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I would appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel. While you're down there, don't forget to like the video if you do enjoy it. So the Imperial map mode is going to look quite similar to what you would have come to expect in EU4, but when you click on the political map mode, that's when things get a little more interesting. Outside of Europe, everything has been decolonized, and I mean everything. There's no forts, there's no cores, there is nothing. If it wasn't in the Empire before, it is gone. That does mean the Teutons and Burgundy are now members of the HRE, and everybody that is able to will have this beautiful modifier here, giving them monies, colonists, and colonial chance and range. So gonna be a pretty good one. You guys love Colonize Pls. I love Colonize Pls. Let's go ahead, turn it up to speed 5 and unpause. My God, look how fast that is. That is so fast. And look how fast everybody's colonizing as well. Now, I've gotten comments about using the uncolonized terrain or whatever. If you guys like this better than the gray terrain, let me know in the comments. Now, before we get too far into this beautiful scenario, I do want to have a real talk with you guys. Those who are in my Discord are likely already aware, but a few months ago, my Google account was compromised, and I foolishly kept all of my passwords saved on that Google account. And even with 2FA enabled on most all of my accounts, my PayPal, my Amazon, and even my Steam login were all taken from me, and I had thousands of dollars of charges in my name over a week or two, none of which were purchases that I had actually made. It took me well over a month to get all of my passwords changed and the charges corrected, and it left me wishing that I had done something earlier to prevent the whole ordeal rather than deal with it after the fact. That is where the wonderful sponsor of this video, NordVPN, comes into play. If I had been more intelligent and used a VPN service like Nord, most of my private data and details would likely have been shrouded from the nefarious actors preying on it. My story specifically revolves around a bad download that had installed malware on my computer that tracked my passwords that I entered them using what's called a keylogger. This won't happen to me again though, now that I'm using Nord's threat protection tool. It blocks all kinds of intrusive ads and web trackers, while also, and most importantly for me, scanning all files downloaded in real time for malware. In terms of location, using plenty of servers from all around the world, Nord can place you where you want to be, when you want to be there, all while keeping your data safe and away from prying eyes. And if you want to stay protected while watching programs not available in your country, that's not a problem. Nord has you covered. If I would have just sacrificed a single cup of Starbucks coffee each month, I probably would have avoided all the hassle I went through, and it is my pleasure to pass along my learning experience to you in the form of a killer deal from NordVPN. By going to nordvpn.com/Chewbert or clicking the link below, you will get 4 whole months for free on a 2-year plan. And even better yet, if you aren't satisfied with your experience using Nord, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee, so it is literally risk-free for you to try it out. I cannot recommend enough that you protect your privacy and your data while roaming the ruthless, savage place that is the internet, and NordVPN is a wonderful option for that. Again, make sure to check out the link below for a great deal on internet security, and a big special thanks to NordVPN for sponsoring this video. So we're 3 years in, and we do have people expanding. We have Austria over here in Turkey, Saluzzo over here in Iberia, Florence in Iberia, Brabant taking over the coast of France, Burgundy colonizing the British Isles with Frisia up here as well, next to Holstein, and Holstein is Scandinavia apparently. Scotland is Brabant in this timeline. Do you guys have a nation that you're rooting for? Do you have a nation that you guys think will win? I'm curious what you guys think, because I got a couple of ideas, but I don't really know if I want to say it and embarrass myself. These border nations like the Teutons, Brandenburg, those guys are just sprinting eastward. They have a good chance of thriving out here on the steppes. The Balkans are almost done with Ferrara, Genoa, Savoy, and Austria doing most of this over here. But we do have a silly Maastricht over here. Very, very silly. And so far, the New World is Frisia, Burgundy, and Lubeck. The Sienese West Indies are thriving. And Volgaster, Mexico is doing a thing over here. I was actually looking at this. I'm like, wait a minute, is that Castile? Nope, it's Volgast. South America is Saluzzo, so we get some Italians down here in South America. Very interesting. And people are hopping along the borders of Africa. So yeah, we're gonna see who comes out on top. Let some time pass and see how things turn out. And in 1507, the Reformation has spawned with quite a lot of colonization finished up already. You guys know Savoy, right? Savoy, the African nation, the Saharan African nation, right next to Fulo, Florence, and England, apparently. More on that in a moment. You can see people hopping from the coast to coast over here. We've got Pope Man, Frisia, Austria, Siena, lots of them. Holstein, Genoa, and Florence are the ones racing across Asia. And if Florence can get most of this Indian dev, that would definitely be a nice strong power base for them. Sealy inventing anime in the 1500s is not what I had on my bingo card, but if you did, make sure you can cross that off. Austrian Korea, Ferrara in China, Sealy in China. It's a mess. We also have Sienese Australia down here in New Zealand. And continuing their colonization, Saluzzo getting most of Brazil, Peru, and La Plata, looking quite good on the colonial front. Colombia has mostly been claimed by the Burgundians, but there is some Lubeck in there as well. Siena continues to colonize the Caribbean. Mexico is mostly Volgaster, but don't forget Picardy as well as Lubeck in Mexico. California and apparently Alaska are both Volgaster as well, with a big, beautiful Sienese Louisiana and New Lubeck. I love it. Frisia and Burgundy seem to have given up on their Canadian possessions, but, only time will tell if they grow or not. But where, oh where, do I begin to unpack the mess that is Europe? Ferrara is Egypt, Sealy is Arabia, Austria is Iran, Iraq, and Turkey, apparently. Ferrara is the Balkans as well as Genoa with parts of Greece. Bohemia is Hungary as well as Wallachia and parts of Bosnia and Serbia and Croatia. Opole and Brandenburg are Poland, Lithuania. Volgast is the Baltic coast, apparently, and Lubeck is Denmark/southern Sweden. Dithmarschen is Russia, with the Teutonic Order, who has been pushed all the way out here. Provence and Siena make up the bulk of France, with Dithmarschen up here with their capital in Amour.
Mais moi, je veux faire l'amour! Je veux faire l'amour!
Iberia is Saluzzo, Siena, Genoa, Brabant, Florence, and Austria. What a mess. And of course, we cannot forget the Balearic Isles of Frisia. It actually appears that the Pope Man has been annexed by Siena, so don't know why that happened, but that did happen. And over here on the British Isles, it's even more of a mess than I expected. We have a couple of Irish tags that have popped out and an England, and that is because in the beginning I said that there weren't any cores left, but the lie detector test determined that that was a lie. So provinces like this can actually be spawned via rebels, so that is a thing. Hence why we have England and a couple of Irish natives over here, and Iceland for that matter. But the Reformation has spawned here in Picardy, and that's clearly going to throw a wrench into the HRE's plans of global domination. With 2 reforms passed and a little bit of growth, it's looking okay, but the HRE usually crumbles when the Reformation rolls around. But look how Catholic the world has become before the Reformation spawns. That is pretty wild. Also, just take a look at the cultural stuff. We've got Germanic, we've got Italian. Awesome. The New World is very Germanic, but we also have quite a bit of Italian here as well. So about 60 years in, I want you guys to leave a comment below and tell me, who do you expect is going to win as far as culture groups go? Is it going to be Germanic or Italian? Because we're pretty sure it's going to be one of them, right? But if you think one or the other, make sure you let us know and tell us why you think so. And 50 years later, colonization is for the most part done. There's a couple provinces here and there, but it's mostly done. And can you guys guess who the #1 great power is just by looking? Beautiful Florence with all that Indian dev like I had mentioned before, but Austria is right there behind him with Genoa, Ferrara, Siena, Sealy, Friesland, and Holstein in the 8th spot. Every single person has at least 1,500 dev, which is crazy. Remember, with the Shadow Kingdom firing, a lot of these guys left, so a lot of these people who are in the top spots actually are not even in the Empire anymore, which is funny because the premise of the whole video was, nations within the HRE colonizing the world. Lots of colonization going on over here specifically, very much a hot spot. Florentine India with Frisian Deccan, Genoese Tartary. You love to see it, folks. Holstein is currently beating up Sealy in a colonial war, so we'll see if they retain their Chinese lands, but looks like Japan is safe. Sienese Australia with Lubeckian Australia, very nice to see. Europe is equally as cursed as it was last time we looked, maybe with a little bit of extra border gore, if I'm being honest. I think my favorite of all of this is definitely just Holstein's capital over here in London with Frisian Britain and Brabantian Britain up here. Just Scotland is Brabant with Northern Ireland as well. It's just, that's really funny to me. Also, Savoy continues to colonize Africa with Central Africa entirely under the occupation of rebel armies. The entire region. Now, Saluzzo's colonial empire of South America continues to go strong, but you're going to notice Burgundian Colombia is white. Volgaster Mexico has broken free and taken over all of Mexico and a good chunk of the area over here in what the game apparently considers Central America in the Rocky Mountains. But does look like Lubeck had changed their interests up into Canada and has taken over a bit of land from here, but Frisian Canada still holding on. We do have a Sulu that has spawned over here in Papua, so that's a thing. And the most coveted of all colonial possessions, Ferrari's East Siberia. The HRE is in shambles, 35 heretic princes. I think you guys know what that means. The Reformation is in full force, with Burgundy leading the charge. A couple of Reformed nations in there, but for the most part Protestant. Though, hilariously, the one province minor, England, in the Pale, actually has spawned Anglicanism. There's a couple of Protestants in the New World, but for the most part, still very Catholic. Good old Picardy over here, converting Ethiopia to Protestant. There's a couple of random provinces that are still other religions, and for the most part, that's just because the AI refuses to colonize random provinces. I don't really know why they do that, but yeah, sometimes it just happens. You can see these red provinces, they just never got colonized. I don't know why. The Reformation continues to ravage the lands here in 1700, but you'll see over here in the east, that big Protestant blob, that is one nation. Can you guess what nation that is? None other than the big, the beautiful, the absolutely busted Prussia under Friedrich von Habsburg. With 140 discipline almost, a force limit of 326,000 men, and 20% infantry combat ability from their ideas, I have a feeling they're going to dominate this region. But not this region over here, the region of North America to be specific, because that is all Mexico, from Panama to Alaska. Meanwhile, the South is still looking almost exactly like it did 100 years ago, Saluzzo just chilling in South America. It looks like Savoy handled their rebels in Central Africa, but they're currently handedly losing a war to Florence up here in the Sahara in their homelands. It's still a mess over here in India and Southeast Asia as well as Indonesia, but you know, there's a bunch of war going on, so borders will certainly change as time goes on. Sealy managed to hold on to their lands in China. For how long, I don't really know, but they do still have it. We've got about 120 years left, so things are still going to be able to change quite a bit in that time. But one thing I just noticed is that Bohemia is one province minor over here in Slovakia, which is funny on its own. But then you look at how big Sealy has become. Sealy is massive. Brabant has been exiled from Brabant and is now Scotland. Love it. Holstein is still southern England, and Friesland is northern Britain. But funnily enough, England, who used to be a one province minor in the Pale, is now a two province minor over here in Ormond and Kildare, or however that's pronounced. But they're at war with Holstein, and they might get annexed over here. Though don't worry, they have their colonial lands down here in Africa that they will inevitably move their capital to. Austria has actually continued to crumble, losing most of their land in Anatolia and a bunch of land in Iran. And as you could have guessed, the empire is not doing well, though the von Habsburg prince up in Prussia is leading the league since the Treaty of Augsburg, I think it is, was signed. Yeah, that's pretty good. An Emperor Friedrich von Habsburg of Prussia leading the HRE. You love to see it, folks. Gaining 3,000 manpower per month. Look at that. The states in the Holy Roman Empire is a massive, massive buff. That is crazy. Apparently, I forgot to turn off lucky nations because I do that all the time, but that's given them another 25%. So yeah, Prussia is probably going to win. Even though they're not that big right now, they're probably going to win. With 120 years left, we've got Florence, Siena, Genoa, Sealy, Holstein, Austria, Saluzzo, Friesland, and I imagine Prussia is probably a close ninth. But one thing that I really love over here is that we have a fully stacked naval hegemon for Siena, the number 2 great power of the world. Yep, I called it. England is now over here in Africa. I love it when this happens, and it happens quite often. And with about 70 years left, Saluzzo has actually taken over more of South America. And meanwhile, Mexico has taken over a lot of North America, and some other colonies have broken free, introducing Canada and the United States. And of course, American Greenland. Prussia continues to dominate over here in the east, with Sealy in the south, with Florence and Siena also in the south. The west, however, is still a mess, but we do have a revolution on our hands. Burgundy has 3 provinces over here in Wales, and their capital is in this Glamorgan, which is hilarious. The center of revolution is here in Avila, which is in Spain, / Saluzzo. Saluzzo is over here. Their capital is in Madrid. And it's been a fairly strong revolution with Siena, Trier, Sealy, Volgast, all of them affected in one way or another. Saluzzo is spreading it in parts of Africa as well, and a few parts over here in Southeast Asia, the Philippines, as well as over here in Sri Lanka. Funnily enough, borders have not changed over here essentially at all. Sealy still is in China, Ferrara is in China, Genoa is over here, Florence is India. Sealy is in Japan, but they are currently at war with Holstein. Holstein, who has become Russia. Holstein is Russia now, I guess. But they're currently wrapped up in a massive war where they are getting beat up on pretty bad. Lots of their land is occupied. We do have a Prussian Persia, which I think is a nice touch. Got a good ring to it. And Ferrara is getting pushed out of Egypt just a bit by Savoy and Florence. Just look at the border gore over here in Anatolia. You got Savoy, Florence, Savoy, Austria, Florence, Austria, with their capital in Tokat. Saluzzo's even got a little slice of the pie over here, across from Gallipoli, which is actually bordering the capital of Adrianopolis for Ferrara. So, some interesting changes to say the least. Trier ended up doing pretty good over here in Western Germany as well as Eastern France, and Provence is doing pretty well over here as well. The religious map mode has definitely cleaned up, with Protestant being essentially Prussia and a couple of nations over here, and basically everyone else being Catholic. And the New World has validated that by essentially converting every single province. And to be honest with you, it looks like basically the rest of the world would agree that Catholic is the true faith. Over here we have the feudal nobility empire of the United States, with the primary culture of Lower Saxon, with Philip Wartenberg as the heir, who is a 345, so not too bad. The Grand Republic of Canada up here in the north, an oligarchy apparently, led by a Grand Syndic, so that's pretty good as well. And while we're over here, we'll take a look at the autocracy of the Empire of Mexico. I love the fact that Mexico's primary culture is Pomeranian. Culturally, it's mostly German, and then Tuscan over here. And here we are again in 1821, our old friend. My goodness. That Mexico is crazy. That is the biggest AI Mexico I have ever seen. They even ate up the southern states of Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, and parts of Louisiana. And my goodness, they're all the way into Canada. So legendary status. South America remained basically the same. Saluzzo seized on some provinces from Austria, but that is about it. Mexico pushed the US and Canada right to the edges of their homelands, and that is pretty crazy. Do you guys remember when Savoy's capital was up here in the Saharan desert? Well, how about down here in the Congo instead? Ah yes, the migratory Savoyards traveling south for the cold weather. Other parts of this are very messy. We've got Germany, Picardy, Austria, Saluzzo, Frisia, everybody's over here. With the Austrian capital of Zimbabwe, the Sienese continue to control Australia and New Zealand. Sealy and Siena split a lot of the land over here, but there's a couple of random ones like Lubeck and Ferrara over here, as well as Holstein. Aside from a few provinces here and there, China looks basically exactly the same as it has for the last 200 plus years. So is India, Florentine India, truly blessed timeline. And obviously the elephant in the room is the massive Germany. No surprise, to be honest with you. I told you guys Prussia was going to dominate because it's Prussia. They always dominate. With Germany taking over all this land over here, you could say that there's quite a bit of living space for the Germans, a lot of space for the Germans to live in. The revolution has spread from Saluzzo, and we'll take a look at that. One person who has avoided it is Florence, but it looks like zealots or something is controlling the majority of their homeland. France is an absolute mess, a bunch of different nations controlling a bunch of different areas. The same with Britain, though the red up here in Britain is actually Florence now. And Pink Russia managed to keep it together and hold it together for the rest of the game. The great powers are, no surprise, Germany in the #1 spot, with Florence not so far behind them, dropping another 1,000 down to Siena, who actually was the economic hegemon for a while. It looks like they just lost the war to Germany right before the game ended, with Mexico right neck and neck with Siena. That is hilarious. I love that. The fact that Mexico had the game that it did makes me so happy. Sealy in the 5th spot, if you can believe that, with Holstein, Saluzzo, and Genoa rounding out the top 8. No surprise at all, almost fully stacked. One more month, and we have a fully stacked military hegemon for Deutschland. And religion looks roughly what you would expect it to. It's Germany. I think it's basically only Germany. We have revolutionary Iceland up here, but aside from that, the only Protestant nation in the world, I think, is Germany. And Lubeckian Columbia. They are also still Protestant. We do have a Protestant Picardy with their capital down here in Gondor. Or not Gondor. We do still have a Protestant Picardy with their capital down here in Gondar or whatever on Tana Lake. Now, I don't know about this unit model. Doesn't really look like somebody from Picardy, at least nobody from Picardy that I really know. Culturally, things haven't really changed much from the last time we looked. We've got a lot of Germanics in the north as well as in Africa, and a lot of Italians in the New World, as well as in Africa and Asia. So when picking a cultural group that we think won, I think I'm going to go with Italians, but I think you could make an argument that the Germans did pretty good as well. Whatever you think, make sure you let us know in the comments below the video. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like on the video and subscribe for more content, because there is a ton to come if you haven't already. If you want to see more stuff like this and you have a suggestion, make sure you leave a comment down below and tell me what you'd like to see. I'm always open to suggestions, and a lot of these videos are actually suggested by people like you. If you want to join my Discord, my subreddit, my Twitter, those things are all linked in the description below. And if you want early access to videos like the awesome people that do in my Discord, you can check out my Patreon for as little as $5 a month. But that is all I've got for you for this one. Till next